Andrea, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I just wanted to ask you, first of all, could you give us a brief summary of what you've just been through with your son?
Um, well, I just went through a period where my son was missing for 5 weeks. Having said that, there's been ongoing issues, uh, just trying to manage his wellness, we'll say, over the last few years. So it wasn't an out of the blue incident, although it was new. Um, the way that this incident transpired was new.
What went through your mind the second you realized he was missing?
Um, initially I wasn't shocked because we've had some issues with him kind of going MIA for short periods before. But once it went on for longer than it had, of course, you go through all the periods, the thoughts of worst case scenarios. But overall, I know he's a really smart kid, even though he is a kid who is dealing with a lot emotionally. So most of the time, I felt like once he figures out whatever he's figuring out, then we'll be in a better place. But you definitely do have those dark moments.
What would you say got you through all of those dark moments?
um, Predominantly the support of just the people closest to me. Um, and then I think, it's an unfortunate chain of events when things come to a head like this, but I think it gave me a new sense of motivation around dealing with my son's situation that has been going on for years and dealing with the system and getting him the support that he needs. I think it has been so exhausting and frustrating at times, especially during the years where I've been raising him on my own, getting him support. I mean, it is extremely, I don't think most people really realize how difficult it is to get um, young adults support, and maybe not just young adults, I mean, anyone support. I mean, our mental health system is backlogged incredibly. I see it all the time with the population that I work with in terms of postpartum depression, people waiting for weeks and months they don't have. And um, I feel like the period that he was gone gave me a lot of time to reflect, and it gave me, as I said, a new kind of energy and motivation, and it kind of put some fight back into me that I think I had burned out. Yeah.
What would you say that you've learned about your son?
Mm, I don't know that I've learned anything more about my son. I think what happens to families in crisis in general, and I've spoken very openly about my own separation and things that I've gone through. I speak very openly, always have publicly, because I think it's really important fact that all of us are going through stuff. All families are, and often because of the social structure that we live in now, we don't share these experiences enough with one another, and we feel isolated and alone, and we're not, because lots of people are going through them. I haven't learned more about my son. I've just reconnected with the reality that my son is an extremely emotional human being who, um, his experience of life and the things that he's gone through in terms of having an absent father and perhaps not getting the support he needed, like, for example, looking at getting him tested for ADHD, which is something that has been going on for years, and something I can say I honestly tried to avoid, because working in the wellness field, you almost feel like you get pushed left or right. And I feel like I've been pushed to the left. No, I don't want my child to be tested for that because I don't want them to be diagnosed or labeled. But now in hindsight, I realize, it can be a real issue for some kids. And couple that with any other issues, I wish I could just go back and have addressed things more aggressively sooner rather than later. I haven't learned anything I didn't already know about him. He is in need, he needs emotional support. Teenagers generally feel lost, anyways, even when life is moderately balanced and perfect. But when things have been out of balance, and depending on the personality of a child, how they're going to experience the world around them is quite variable. And he has not had the type of support that he's needed. And I have fought very, very hard, but I think, and I'm not any guiltier than anyone else, balancing everything going on in life in terms of balancing my other children's needs and balancing running a business and balancing my own emotional wellness and all of it. Um, it just felt eventually like I was losing this fight for him. So, I think what I've learned, it's not even about my son, it's not about me, it's just what I've always said, but it's harder to put into practice in the world that we live in, is that less is more. Like, we need to slow down, we need to be more present to our children, we need to work less. We don't need more things. Kids don't need them. They need our attention. And yeah, so I mean, that's it. I think, it's just a matter of, unfortunately, when an acute incident or a crisis happens, you have to kind of really answer the call, right? And of course, we have human nature, right? We have regret, wish I could have, would have, should have. But um, what I realize is that all of us, like, we all want to be good and we all want to feel connected. And when somebody is lost and feeling lost and not feeling connected, they will act out. And the only way to solve it is to try to heal whatever's going on for them with the simplicity of what's needed, and that's connection. So that's it, really. I mean, I guess maybe I'm oversimplifying the matter, but I've had a lot of, because of my publicness about my business and life, I've had a lot of different people from different walks of life reach out to me over the last little while. And it's been really, really interesting to hear, I think, what's going on in terms of raising teenagers in today's world with all of the pressures that are around us in terms of the internet, especially in an inner city, or in an urban area where there seems to be even more temptation, and there seems to be even a busier aspect of life, which is why I've actually moved out of the urban area now. Um, I think that teenagers feel very, very isolated today. They feel even less connected than they have in previous generations. And on speaking to parents who feel like they're losing their kids, or speaking to teenagers that I know, other teenagers, whether it be friends or family, it seems to be a resounding kind of theme. I think children are begging for us to slow down.
What specific ways has this whole, really life-altering incident, you could call it, or situation with your son, in what specific ways has it changed you and impacted you as a parent?
Well, I mean, I've made a lot of really crucial decisions about my own wellness over the last couple of years. And it's kind of like the oxygen mask, right? They weren't easy decisions, and they, in many cases, weren't popular decisions. We love to judge one another in this culture, especially mothers, right? We hold mothers to a different standard than we hold anyone else, which I can't really comprehend still to this day. We expect this superhumanness out of women who are mothers, and we don't seem to expect it of fathers. We don't. And people might like to argue that fact with me, but I see it time and time again. I am grateful that I stepped back when I did, and got support for myself when I felt like I was really hitting the wall after 10 years of running a really demanding business and resolving a very unhealthy relationship in which my children we're being raised in, and stepping back to kind of put the cart before the horse, so to speak, right? So that was something that I was already grasping. Um, I think I've just learned that those decisions were right decisions. Like perhaps not, you know, unfortunately, sometimes we have to go through what we have to go through to get where we're going. And sometimes when we're deeply in it, in the chaos of it all, and we're trying to wrap our head around what are the right decisions to rectify or correct a situation, it requires us stepping out of it. I feel that I'm able to be more emotionally present to my son now than I have been in past years. And in fact, I think it's interesting because what I see, especially working with young moms who have newborns and babies, particularly a lot of them first-time parents, we have that year off in Canada, and we're so invested. We're so at some point, as I would say, as mothers, we're almost overly invested because we actually buy into this social stigma that we are the only ones to nurture this little human being. But it's an impossible balance to maintain once you move back to work. And so I see and connect with a lot of women over the years who've known me for 5, 10, 15 years, who really reach that critical point of burnout. I think what I've learned about what I need to continue doing with my work, which is a part of how I also need to manage my personal life, is that I just need to keep pressing forward with the whole concept of really recreating community for one another, and not just talking about it, but really creating tangible solutions for people to walk the walk. An example that was given to me for my son, which was great because I was like, how do I create this circle of support for my son that isn't dependent only on me, because perhaps some of his issues are with me. So how do we create a sense of support for him? And I came up on the advice of a woman who mentored actually a fairly known figure in Toronto, Brandon Hay, who founded the Black Daddies Club. A woman that knows him had told me about creating a committee, or almost like a dream team of support people, and in this case, predominantly men, who would work together to support my son, because, as it was said to me, it's too much for any one person once someone's in crisis. And I think that's what we forget. We think that someone's in crisis and that we alone can fix it. And that's not how it works. It's kind of like the cup being empty, and we need to fill that cup back up. And we can't empty our own cup to fill somebody else's. It's something that we have to work at as a community, as a group of people. So the tangible solution that I got was reach out to people in your life who you know are good people and are stable in their own lives, and have time and energy and attention to give him and commit to him, and create a committee or a dream team of support. So I think, that was one example that worked in my own life. And I think it's not far off from what I've tried to create for the young moms that I work with. When I say, I'll see a mom who has postpartum depression, and I'll say to the women in class, we know that there's this mom and who's struggling, and it's all great for us to go there and to call her, and to, as somebody said to me, sentiment is nice, but it doesn't really change somebody's dynamic. We actually have to put in the time. And I think, so in a case with a young mom, it might just be cooking her meals. It might be going over, even taking 5 people taking time to go over once a day to make sure she's not alone and isolated. And, what I've realized in trying to create this team for myself, because it's harder to do it for yourself than it is for other people, because there's more humility involved when you're doing it for yourself, and you don't want to push, or even though it's okay to ask for help when you're doing it for yourself. I have no problem asking for help for other people. Mm-hmm. But you realize that what happens is we've all convinced ourselves we're too busy. And I challenge people to recognize that you're not too busy to help. You're too busy not to. That your dynamic right now that makes you feel too busy is a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. And I went back to some younger years when I had 3 kids, and as much as my life was crazy busy, I actually realized in hindsight these were things that kept my head above water. And I did a lot of speaking to young single moms. And anytime I would connect with anyone who was really open to having more support, I would quote unquote, and I don't even really love the word because it's like it's putting me somehow in a superior position, and I don't see it that way, but I would mentor. But what I recognize about mentorship is it's energy in and energy out. You're just getting, that person is mentoring you just as much as you're mentoring them. And while they may not be in the same position as you financially or emotionally or socially or professionally, that they serve as a reminder that when you are mentoring them, you're actually mentoring yourself, that you can bring somebody who is in need into your life and you can give them an opportunity to learn life skills, professional skills, and giving them such a level of value that you're adding to their life by incorporating them into your life, but you're getting it back tenfold because it's supporting your life too. So I think that what we really need to do is we really need to challenge each other to reframe our thinking about what community looks like, about what mentorship looks like, about what support looks like. And I challenge people who think they're too busy and don't have enough time in their life to stop for a second and recognize you're probably the person who needs to do it the most.
Finally, Andrea, can you tell us what one piece of advice would you give to parents or families who find themselves in crisis, either as a family or with their children?
It's really challenging, I will say, because there's not much support from the system. And I don't even know that that's what shifts things for us socially moving forward. The system is in place because of the kind of industrial nation that we've created, and the breakdown of the family. We've now, in place of extended family, have all of these support systems, which really hardly anyone can access anyway. If you're lower income, you can't access it because of waiting lists. If you're higher income, you can pay for it, but at the end of the day, it's not really shifting the full dynamic of your family. I think one of the things that you can do, first of all, I mean, ultimately, in the ideal world, we would start to make changes before we're in crisis, but we are creatures of habit, and the social structure that we live in now hasn't taught us how to live in relationship to one another. But, to be honest, I would say one of the most important things for a family in crisis is to immediately simplify their life. And I'm talking big, drastic changes, the ones that make you feel uncomfortable, like if you're living in a house that is causing you to pay a big mortgage, for example, in the big city, and it's breaking your back and you're close to the straw that's breaking the camel's back, stop. Reevaluate. Sit down and rethink what your priorities are. Where do you want to be 5 years, 10 years from now? And again, simplify your life, because I think it's very hard, because again, I think also a part of our social structure and in relationship to media, we live in a very addictive culture. We're addicted to everything. We're addicted to TV. We're addicted to going out and eating dinner. We're addicted to everything we think we need. And essentially, in the pursuit of all these things that we think we need, we're killing ourselves. And I think that really incorporating the simple, basic things, which again, it's not easy, will actually feel highly uncomfortable initially. But then trying to align yourself with other families who are there. So looking for mentorship yourself. And I'm not talking one-on-one mentorship. I'm talking family mentorship. And I've spoke overly. I spoke a lot about this family that I met in Edmonton during my years that I was living there. And I think I learned a lot in Edmonton because there was a lot of women whose husbands went away to work. So they had really mastered the concept of community. They had no choice. But there's one particular individual out there who runs another mom company, Cozy Baby Happy Mommy, and she really facilitates a lot in her community around tangible community. Like she always brings kids into her home. She never charges for childcare. She always just is supporting other women. She's creates these kind of groups of women where they will come and they will spend afternoons cooking together and talking to, playing with each other's kids, so that you're not doing it alone. So you're having that support. They do the same thing for cleaning each other's homes. And, again, I think one of the challenges is when you're more affluent and you're professional, you're just paying for these things. You're getting these services, but you're actually still lacking the sense of community. So there's still a sense of emotional isolation that is plaguing a lot of families. And I think then it puts a lot of pressure on relationships as well, because the partners are expecting a lot from each other in terms of how to fill that emotional gap. And the thing is, if you look throughout history, it's not how we're meant to function, where I'm just looking to my partner, expecting them to be the one kind of fulfilling my emotional needs and me to them. Especially women, we're living in large groups in relationship to one another. But I'm even realizing it now when I'm looking at the boys and men in my life, that the emotional health of men and boys is not good right now. And they need relationship and support and social connection in the same manner. It's not something that is just isolated to the needs of women. It's just the needs of human beings.